Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for internet technology professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria with another episode of the Sanity IT Project podcast. What's important to me to tell you about today is how we work with IT pros. The Sanity Project podcast is a platform for experts in the self-help and IT community to share their wisdom, expertise, and solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. I'm Joanne Victoria, and I'm the host of the Project Podcast. And my guest today is a returnee. Lucky for me that I've had the opportunity to recall Michael Sarni, known as Mike. He was on the show a couple of months ago, and I asked him to come back to discuss a particular issue that is happening in the workplace in various companies, mostly large companies, but in various IT companies. I'm going to give you an introduction to Mike Sarni, S-A-R-N-I, and Mike is a dynamic IT project management professional with diverse experience in consumer banking, electronic medical records, healthcare building, infrastructure, pharmaceutical clinical trial, interactive voice web response systems, as well as front, middle, and back office financial trading system. He also has extensive experience in staff building, team development, soft skills, and conflict resolution. And one of those things he's going to discuss today, which is bullies in the workplace. Michael is also a 5th degree black belt in USA Koju Karate. He still practices and maintains his dojo in Bahama, North Carolina. Michael and his wife, Christine, also maintain a small ranch with, here we go, 4 horses, 7 goats, 5 dogs, 4 barn kitties, and 9 ducks. Welcome, Michael, to the show.
Joanne, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back here today.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you responded excitedly to my request that you come on and talk about some issues in the workplace that I am dealing with clients. And I know today we're going to talk about bullies in the workplace, and bullies is the current word to use, and bullies do take up energy. How do you talk to that? Bullies taking up energy in the workplace.
Let's see, which way do we want to go with this? Joanne, can you give me kind of an example for the audience so maybe we can drive?
Okay, I'm talking about a specific situation, no names here, that there are teams involved. As you know, in your work, everything is done with a team process because so much has to be done at one time. And this particular individual is on a team and continually undermines the team by mostly not doing the work assigned and doing and sticking their nose into everybody else's job and not getting their particular aspect of the job complete. So that leaves the producer with no complete project. And the producer, of course, since they are in charge, the producer gets the grief from whoever is above the producer. The job is not finished. The project can't go forward because one team depends on another team. And then this particular, I would say bully / vampire, as you called it, an energy vampire, also sticks their nose into the coders, the developers, everybody else's job except their own. And that leaves the team powerless. So is that enough information for you to work with?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I wish that I think everyone in IT has had this happen at least once in a lifetime, not multiple times.
Sure.
And it is the most difficult thing to handle. And to be honest, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. There's a lot to do with the culture of the company, what they're willing to do, the maturity level of the team. Do they have people that are okay with confronting with conflicts and confronting that or not. So there's so many dynamics in here. Maybe we'll do kind of like the best case scenario, worst case scenario, but
sure,
we'll see how it goes.
That would be great.
So as a project manager, the first thing I try to do is I look at it to be as actual factual as possible. If there's angst going on between people, I try to put a project management artifact in the middle of it, so that instead of them fighting each other, they're fighting that artifact. So it could be the requirements. So if they're fighting each other over requirements and someone's supposed to get requirements and they're not, et cetera, then what we do is we put the requirements in front of them. Maybe we take what are the components that we have to do. There's, say, 5 modules that have to be completed for this requirement document. Who has number 1, 2, and 3? And a strong facilitator will be able to continue to push back on the person who is going into everyone else's business but their own and say, oh, that's really great that you're helping them out. However, on your side, what do you think is your roadblock or your challenges to get this? And basically, we talked about this last time. There are control dramas that people use when they're under stress. And so sometimes analytics, IT, they become interrogators and question. And that could be a negative thing for a project. However, if you have someone who's bullying and not giving answers, you can turn that around and start interrogating them about their project and their tasks. And then that bully in there, it could escalate, or it could also say, hey, I know you're trying to bully me. However, you got work to do. Here's some questions for you. I just think back at this, what you just laid out, and it is so difficult, and the emotions definitely come forward.
I've seen. I've seen. I don't deal with the entire team because that is not where I'm at yet. At some point in time, they may ask me to come in and do that. So I deal with the individual, and that's where I'm currently at. And the situation is above the producer, who normally manages teams. I think you're familiar with that. The producer has no one to speak to get support from. So if the producer challenges / interrogates the bully, there's no moving forward, because then that becomes a one-on-one and not a team situation. Mm-hmm. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. This is one where we have to try multiple ways to figure out what's going to help.
Right.
Another technique that I like to do is, especially when I start to feel the emotions, how do I get the emotion out of it? And I do something that's going to put the responsibility on me. And it's simply, I say, this is probably not your intent, but when you said X or you did X, I felt this way.
Got it.
So what that does, it makes it so we're not confrontational, but I'm calling out the elephant. So in this case, when we are looking for you to tell us when you're going to get this work done, and you start helping all these other people out, I feel that you think that their work is more important than yours or more critical, and that doesn't help me understand how the work is going to get done.
Got it. Sounds like marriage counseling.
Yeah. And then,
when you say that, I feel this.
Yeah. And then the one thing I like to add to that is the power of the pause. And this is actually, you've probably seen salespeople do this. All of a sudden, the statement's made, and then you don't say anything. And the person who speaks first,
loses,
negotiation-wise, kind of loses, or in this case, we win because it just hopefully shifted that person to be away from their control dramas to actually get to the work itself. Mm-hmm. Also, what comes to mind, if this is something that continually happens, there's a history of this, there has to be a way to get a mediator into the room to observe the situation, and maybe not then and there, but afterwards confront that person or the team to find out how to do a better job. It sounds so, it's something like an actual factual is not enough for this situation. There's something more that the person's doing, and it could be that their ego is too much in the way. It could be that they really don't want to do the work or don't know how to do the work, so they're doing whatever blame game they can for it. And the elephant's got to be called out. And if the culture of the company is rewarding the behavior the person has had that's bad, it's going to be really difficult to change that.
Right. Yeah, that was the last thing you said was what I focused on, and one of my aspects, because in a situation like this, you have to keep moving those 360 degrees and find the right fit in what the client is able to use on the job and what will work. But if the ego is involved, that's very difficult, because I find it, if the bully, and with the bullies, it's mostly ego, I think. But when the ego is involved, there's really no rationality in conversation, because it's not so much, I don't think, that the bully may not know their job. It's they know their job and they want to know everybody else's as well and be a hero. Mm-hmm. So even though nobody's asked, there's no dilemma, but there's a volunteer, in my opinion, it appears to be somebody's volunteered to be a hero, and I don't know how to deal with that. I mean, I don't even know what that, you know what I'm saying? I didn't even know that doesn't fit into my wheelhouse, my brain yet. So anyway.
We're trying to use sane, common sense behavior in a situation that's not sane, and common sense is not there.
Right.
This is, and that's why I'm glad we're talking about this, and we're throwing out different techniques that people could use to try, but this is the most difficult thing that ever happens.
Oh, I gave you a good one, didn't I?
Oh yeah. But let me give you a success story.
Okay.
I was working with somebody who did disaster recovery, and her role was to really push the IT and the business execs to really do their plans and get everything so that we can do our disaster recovery over and over. And there was so much pushback that the managers all kind of got together and gave her a really bad write-up. So much so that they sent her to a coach.
Right.
Well, as she went through the coaching and went through all that she was doing, let's jump to the end. The final outcome was she was doing everything right, and the coaching went back to each one of those managers and said, she is doing her job. She was telling you what needed to get done, how, when, and you were not doing your job. And so she got the benefits of the coaching. She got the benefits of saying that your job, the way you did, was correct. Her confidence level, which was high, went down. It was back up to what it was because she was a great professional. And it wasn't that any angst afterwards with all these managers. It was the managers finally told, no, you've got to do it this way. This is correct. And all of a sudden there was a complete shift in that organization for that. So in this case, they gave her a coach, and that coach called it like it was, and it really helped out that entire organization. But you notice there was that the culture of the company was to help, and also to look at, I guess, the mediation and what is the outcome here, and call out exactly what it was. So if the organization doesn't know about this person that's a bully or these people, it has to somehow get to them. And maybe it's as simple as who is the true stakeholder of this project, and go to them and saying it is potentially failing because of this personality conflict. And we need a mediator, or someone to be a mediator or a middle person, a liaison, to be able to work with this person so that the team can get the job done.
Right.
Easy said, tough to do.
Yeah, because everybody's doing a CYA in certain situations where nobody wants to admit that they might be accountable and or responsible for Hello? What did I say? A bad word?
No, you're just dead on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what comes to me. So, from my perspective, all I can do is share what I know with my client, yet the client has to deal with the reality of, they can know that they are not, it's not their fault, quote unquote, they're not responsible, yet they are still accountable, and that they are, as you expressed in this vignette, they are doing their job the way it needs to be done. And fortunately, your person had somebody to support them, i.e. the coach, quote unquote, obviously something that I do as well in the real world. And it worked. But it worked because, as you say, the company culture supported people getting along with each other, and not, they supported the people that worked for them. And they were obviously not a huge company, because you could get all these people on board. I mean, I don't know for sure. I think the smaller the company, the easier it gets to, or the smaller the group, the smaller the, what do you call it? Is a word that I can't think of right now, but the smaller the arena of people that you have to speak to help make this work, the easier it might be to get done. But if the company, the macro view, that's from the micro view. From the macro view, if the macro view doesn't care, you're lost. It's done.
Yeah. As you're talking, I was thinking of switching this a little bit to, if I'm one of those team members and the person's bullying me, what can I do? And I was thinking back for myself, and I'm going to use the word environment. And basically, if there's a good environment, studies show if people are not high performers and they go into a good environment, they become good. If it's a bad environment, even if you're good, you go to a bad environment, a lot of times you're going to go and do what's the norm of that environment. And what I want to say is that what I found was I didn't like an environment that I was in, and I said, well, I got to change it. But I have control of my environment, but I have to figure out what I want my environment to look like. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take some time to figure out what I want this environment to look like that I'm in. Then I'm going to come up with a plan on how I can change the environment. And then if I can't change the environment to something that's palatable, then I can change my environment, which could be leaving the job, going to a different department, anything like that. And so what I did was I said, what do I truly love when I'm working? And in my case, it was I desire to be able to go to work, enjoy working with great people, and go home and do what I love to do outside of work, a kind of really balanced work life. And I would go into work, and sometimes there are people who I call energy vampires. These are the people that come to your cubicle, and when they leave, you feel drained. And so I took that and said, every time, and I do this today, when I go to someone's cubicle, I kind of sense what they're, are they feeling good, feeling bad, but what their energy is. And I make sure that either when I leave, they're at the exact same level or higher when I leave. So because I want to work with really good people, good energy, I have to put that out there. And then the people that were either, let's say someone, you don't like gossip. Well, I came up with little catchphrases for me to be able to safely get out of those conversations. One thing I would say is, sorry, politics and religion, too polarizing, I don't talk about it.
Right.
Boom. And they continue. I'm like, hope you don't mind, I don't talk about that stuff. Great. I create these catchphrases for me, so it was always there for me to just pull out. Also, I tried to make it so that it was empowering to them and they understood why. If there's a person who always comes to your desk or always comes over to you and they really waste your time, I've had times where myself and other people would just try to avoid them. Worst thing to do. My recommendation is, I'm just going to make fitness, say, Paul. Hey, Paul, how you doing today? Sorry, I got to run. Good talking to you the other day. Boom. Now that person feels empowered. Someone noticed them, and they got some energy as opposed to stealing it from me. So I started making this environment that I was in by being the person that I wanted other people to be. And the things I didn't like, I would be gentle but force that out. And for me, it helped me to change my environment, the environment, and also cater to people so they can do the same thing for themselves.
Right.
So bottom line, we do have control over our environment, but we first have to figure out what we want it to look like.
Perfect. That's perfect. One of the things I read that you wrote is, what I asked you, what has been a reason, what has been a lesson or advice that stuck with you? And you said something about, and I don't know if you have it in front of you. If you don't, I'll read it. If you do, would you refer to it? You said for some reason IT pros think that they must always have the answer and have it immediately.
Yes, the best advice I received, I use it constantly, is not to be afraid to say, I don't know, I'll find out, and I'll get back to you by Thursday at 8 p.m. Actually, my older sister, gave that to me when I was an intern, and
right.
She said, how do you build integrity? You have to say what you know and what you don't know. And I actually found this over and over again in IT. Yeah, people don't want to say, I don't know. In IT, we pride ourselves on having the answer as quick as possible. In a negative fashion, I was in a meeting once, and the question came up, and I actually was pondering the question, and the other person quickly gave the answer, came to me afterwards and said, hope you don't mind, I gave the answer, but you look like you were floundering.
Oh, perception, yeah.
Perception, and this person also was a bully who tried to get into everyone else's business.
Mm-hmm.
And I just smiled. I knew that I could tell him my personality type, but it would just, it wouldn't have mattered. So I said, no worries, thanks, boom. But across the board, I always go back to, I don't know, I'll find out, I'll get back to you. And the key is I have to get back to him with the status. And it could be, I have no status yet, here's what we're working on. You think we need to get more people? And I bring them into the problem-solving process, if need be.
Right. Just to restore their sense of heroism or some such thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is.
But also, I use this for managing up. I look at a manager, and when their manager comes to them, they have to have some sort of answer. So it's really nice that they say, yes, Mike is working on it. This is the issue. And he's going to give us a status by this time. And that manager from working with me knows he's going to get a status before or after that. So it's complete communication across the board. Trying to view my manager and his or her needs really helps me with the communication across the board. And that information I can help drive to the team so they know what's expected. The residual benefit of this little thing covers so much.
Yeah, I see how it would, because you're not disenfranchising the person you're speaking with. You're giving them something. You're giving them a good takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
And they know, and it closes the door in their head. My question was answered. Even though they didn't get what they wanted, they got something that was equally effective.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And on top of that, to start doing this in the IT world takes a lot of courage.
I know. Yeah.
Everyone assumes we're supposed to have the answer, but again, I have built so much credibility. If I have the answer, I say it. If not, I'll find out. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to find the answer. I just have to I'm accountable to make sure that we get the answer. So many IT people think that they have to have the answer. And it's tough because of that culture that we have, the quickest, fastest to get the answer. And sometimes, the answer we give isn't really a right or appropriate answer. Taking that step back and really understanding what the true issue is. I may be answering a question that really is barking up the wrong tree.
Right.
So
yeah, you have to. Yeah. I understand.
I was going to say, on top of this is asking those questions. Don't just take whatever the statement is that comes to me as gospel. Do those quick questions. So here's what I think you're saying. This is what I think we need to follow up on. Is that correct? Kind of active listening. I'm sorry.
Right.
Say?
Nothing. I was just going along with you, and I was getting excited about what you were saying. What I usually my comeback. It's not even a comeback. It's not that strong, but my confirmation of this in a conversation with someone when I explain something to them that might be out of alien to them, like they've never heard that. Does this make sense to you? Because it has to make sense on some level. Otherwise, they can't. Nobody can move forward. So if this makes sense, for now, step at a time, step at a time, step at a time. So this has been great. We never have enough time, and that means that you'll have to come back again soon. And
love to.
Oh, good, because I'd love to have you back, because you are by far, well, you're the only one I would refer myself to on any of these situations. And so I think that our audience is going to love this episode and gain so much information and certainly a lot to think about. So is there one last thing that you would like to share before I close this episode?
So many. Something on a relationship basis that helps. Especially in IT, there's only 2 times to give advice: when asked or life-threatening. So many times in IT, we try to solve everyone's problems, including our own. But if the person isn't willing to hear, if they didn't ask you for that advice, it really doesn't pay to give it, because a lot of times it causes more angst. So again, 2 times to give advice: when asked for, life-threatening. It's one of my mantras also that helps me throughout the day, because there's this male Mr. Fix-It in me.
Yes, I understand.
So it helps me put Mr. Fix-It in my back pocket until he or she is asked to come out.
Right. I understand. I understand.
And if I could throw it back, do you have any, I'm going to put you on the spot, do you have any mantras that you'd like to share?
Well, I have several. One is never give up. So if you're looking for an answer to something, you just keep going until you find the answer. And you may stumble and fall along the way, but eventually you'll find somebody who will give it to you and give you what you want in the way that you want to hear it. It sounds simple, but it's not, because it requires focus. It requires humility. You have to admit you don't know. And so I have, the more I ask, because I need to, I'm a constant learner. So I feel that most everyone is. If I feel a way, that it means everybody else feels the same way at one time or another. It may not be their constant, but I would just say, just keep going, keep asking questions. And if somebody else doesn't give you the response that is effective for you in your life, find somebody else. And that's why people find. Go ahead.
I think the thing you're nailing is a lot of people look for the answers, but they're not asking either the question or the right question. And by never giving up and always going that direction on the question, it's going to fine-tune your questioning abilities to get to the question, as opposed to,
a question
to get to it. And then the answers come because you're asking the question in a way that's palatable to the environment, the person, etc. I
think that people have to move off their position of being righteous and admit that they don't know something. And once you move a little bit left or a little bit right, the energy will change and you will be able to ask the question to the right person to give you the information that you need. That happens to me all the time, because I'll just be out there hanging and looking and seeking. And then somebody will say, have you ever thought of that? And I go, holy crap, that'll work. Anyway, on that, ending on that note, I want everyone who has listened to this episode to go to iTunes, give the podcast a 5-star review, and give Mike Sarni a beautiful written review. And if anybody is interested, they can have a free book on my website, askjoannevictoria.com. The book is called The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. Excuse me, I had to think a minute. It's terrible when you have to think, because you have to stop. A guide to transform your life. And it is a self-help book, yes, a self-improvement book, but there are many questions and ways to help yourself in the book, and it's free. So there is something to be said for that. We all thank Mike Sarni for being here today, and sometime soon he's going to come back as a guest to talk about something else that is vital in the IT world for our IT listeners to listen to. Thanks very much and have a great day.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com and continue the conversation on her podcast page. And get a free copy of her book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.